On today's Chin Music Show, our baseball show at TalkNorth.com, we want to talk about Royce Lewis, talk about Josh Bell, some of the minor moves the Twins have made, which mostly they have been minor moves. And we'll have our Booze and Blues segment at the end where we talk music and cocktails and anything else that comes to mind. We appreciate you joining us. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio. We're also presented to you by OnX Maps. The lineup today: Royce Smalley, former Twins star, former Twins broadcaster; LaVelle Neal III, baseball guru and columnist at the Star Tribune. I'm Jim Souhan, also from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. Before we get to the long conversation we plan to have about Royce Lewis and where he is, what we should expect, LaVelle, just kind of catch us up on recent Twins news. What's up?
Well, they are still trying to finalize their group of well, let's start with this. Joe Ryan and the Twins are only $500,000 apart in their negotiations for a contract for this year. But that is not – apparently that gap is so huge that they can't settle in the middle. So right now they head to arbitration. So that's what came up yesterday.
Yeah.
Which I find hilarious that when a team and a player, they're that far close, they can't figure out a way to split the difference or even give someone a 60-40 and just get it
silly.
done.
That's absolute silliness.
It cracks me up, man. I can't believe these things. And this goes back to when, the years when I was on the beat, and I think there was times when the Twins were like $250,000 apart from a solution that still had to go into arbitration. And I remember, Torrey Hunter getting so mad, about some of these arbitration talks. He was like, it took me to get to the arbitration office or the court. And he had like 1 foot in the doorway until like Wayne Kriske would finally spit out a number that he wanted to hear, and they would get it done. The Twins historically have scraped for every little penny, every inch that they could possibly get in these things. And it just leads to acrimony, I think, between players, and ownerships. And, being a Chicago sports fan, I remember Leon Durham going to arbitration and the Cubs making a big deal out of the ground ball that went through his legs in a playoff loss to the Padres, So it just sets you up. They go in these hearings and hear this crap, and you should. And I just don't understand why they just can't. Let's avoid that because no one benefits from that. Let's just split the difference or just give them a little bit more and get it done. But no.
LaVelle, I've been through that. It's really, really stupid. The fact that they will come in and say things like what you're saying about Leon Durham, and then they've finished with the arbitration, and then they clap you on the back and say, "Okay, man, we'd love to have you here again. Let's go get them." It's absurd. And what that says to me is what they're not looking at is if they're only 500,000 apart, which is whatever percentage it is on whatever the total is going to be. Joe Ryan is the reason that Joe's not willing to split the difference, evidently, is because he's pissed off. He's mad anyway. He's mad about he finished. You were saying, LaVelle, that he finished the season with a bad personality about all the stuff that was going on. So they know that's where his head is anyway. And it would be a pretty great gesture, for them, for their, arguably, one of the best pitchers in the game and about one of the few things that we all have to look forward to, at least at this point, for them to say, hey, you know what, you're really important to us. We don't care about about splitting it. We'll just pick it up. I mean, they ought to do that. Then, if they really can't afford him, then they can go ahead and trade him later on. But just do it. It's such silliness.
Yeah, Ryan filed for $6.35 million, and the Twins filed at $5.85 million. And that's, now I can understand like the Tigers. Tariq Scuba wants $32 million, and the Tigers filed at 19. Okay, that's a gap. Okay.
Right.
That needs work. I'm looking at this list here. Vinny Pasquantino of the Royals, he filed for 4.5, and the Royals filed for 4. So that's another 500,000 difference. Why are we quibbling? Oh, here's another one. Tyler Stevenson filed at $6.8 million. The team filed, the Reds, at $6.55. Why are we quibbling over $250,000? For goodness sakes, why are you doing this to your players?
Yeah, it's silly for the actual dollars involved in the whole scheme of things. It's silly, and especially for a guy. Look, there's acrimony anyway. If you go to arbitration with a team, you're mad anyway. You know you're going to be mad about that. But if your player, one of your really good players, you're making go to arbitration, and he was already pissed off anyway. He already had a bad attitude anyway. It's I don't know, incredibly short-sighted and stupid to me. I mean, it's just silly.
And is it worth, if you're an agent, is it really worth fighting over $300,000 or $500,000 just to say that you won? I don't know.
Well, LaVelle, what do you think the relationship between Ryan and the team is right now? Is it problematic enough that we're going to see it manifested in the clubhouse this year? Is it problematic enough that you think they will eventually trade Joe Ryan?
From what I heard, he was one of the unhappy campers of what was going on around him during the deadline, and he was actually involved in rumors. I believe. I think Boston was interested in Ryan before.
I bet everybody's interested in Ryan. The question is whether the Twins are willing to trade him.
Right, exactly. It depends what they're going to get back, and apparently they didn't get the players that they wanted to get, and I'm guessing they're asking for a lot considering what Ryan's talent is and what regard he's being held in. I mean, Ryan's going to be part of the Team USA pitching staff in the World Baseball Classic. That's nothing to sneeze at. That is a reflection of how baseball feels about Joe Ryan. And if Joe Ryan's a little bit unhappy about what's going on right now, it could carry into the season, and maybe that's going to be a challenge for the new manager. And Shelty's got to go in and make sure that, he's in a good headspace and make sure that, as far as being in uniform on the field and the clubhouse with his teammates, that he's loved and he's needed. So, that's going to be a challenge for our new manager to make sure he's squared away going into the season.
Okay. I've got two more quick points. Just a couple more quick points that I want to make. That that's kind of what I was trying to get at. What did you say? Ryan's filed for $6 million and something, and so, but the Twins think that they're going to get a whole boatload of talent for him, or they won't trade him. So that means probably he's worth more than $6 million. It'd be my guess. So okay. If you're acknowledging how valuable he is to you and what kind of market value he has in baseball, and you're quibbling over $500,000 on a $6 million deal, that's silly. And that's just bad thinking in my view. Secondly, with regard to how it carries over, I've spent a lot of years playing for Calvin Griffith, the old Met, and when I got there in a trade as a young kid, the whole clubhouse was pissed off every day, all the time. And it's not fun. It's not a good situation. And Mauch had to deal with that, on a daily, weekly, monthly basis for the whole time he was here. It's one of the reasons why he resigned ultimately, because he finally said, look, he's not going to get many players, and the players I have here are pissed off. What am I going to, I just don't want to do this anymore. That's where it is. I mean, you can get two results. One can be positive. Joe Ryan can be so pissed off he goes out and has the best year he's ever had because he wants to stick it to him in some kind of way, or just that he's mad. But the real vulnerability is if it infects the personality in the clubhouse, and that's not worth $500,000.
Well said, LaVelle. The Twins have made a few minor signings, and I mean literally minor signings. The guys who are probably going to end up playing AAA or being organizational depth. Any of the names jump out at you? Anybody who you could see actually making a move toward having a regular job in the majors?
No, the Josh Bell signing is intriguing. Because I went down a rabbit hole and started looking this up because I'm writing about this for Sunday. Just about the Twins. Parted ways with Miguel Sano in 2022, and it was about a 3-year run there where he was like their starting first baseman. And he had, one really good season when he hit 32 homers, and then the decent season, and then just fell off the table. The Twins' first base production hasn't been great since then.
No.
It hasn't. But I will say this: when I went down the rabbit hole, I realized over the last 3 years, teams have gotten an average of just 24 home runs from their first base position, which kind of surprised me because I keep thinking that every other team other than the Twins has like a Pete Alonso type at first, but that's not the case, you know. But last year, Twins first baseman, and that was Ty France, who, came into camp, upset about his defensive metrics, but probably should have been upset about his offensive metrics. And then there was Cody Clemens and a little bit of Edouard Julien at the first base. They combined for 15 homers, 72 RBI, and a 678 OPS, and a 81 OPS plus, which means they were far from average, and the average OPS from first baseman in Major League Baseball last year was 754. So they were at 678. The league's average was at 754. So that shows you just how bad they were. Josh Bell is an improvement from that. So, you can applaud the Twins. Hey, they've upgraded the position going into 2026, So that's what I got out of this little exercise. So, we talked, Bell was on the Zoom call yesterday. The man's been pretty durable. He's played at least 140 games every year since 2018, I believe, not counting the COVID year. So he's out in the field. And this would be a great transition for us here since we have an agenda. But, Bell has the same representation as Royce Lewis, and he's been in contact with Royce Lewis, and they both live in Texas. And so they're going to start hitting together next week. And, Bell came out and said he knows Royce has had some ups and downs, has some struggles, over the last couple of years. And maybe he can lend some of his experience and his expertise to try to kind of help him get on the right track here. So, that could, be a boost for the team too, having a guy who's been around for a while. Bell, I think, turns 33 this year. So he's got some experience, and he's been to a bunch of different clubs and played for a bunch of different managers. And, that his baseball experience could maybe be a boost to Royce at a very precarious point of his career.
All right, let's talk about Royce. Let's take care of the business first, though. Have you ever driven past a piece of land and wondered who owns that, or maybe you need to know exactly where a property line runs? That's where Onyx Hunt comes in, and it's not just for hunters. There are folks using Onyx for their jobs every day throughout the country, from farmers and ranchers mapping out their fields, wildland firefighters navigating rough terrain, to construction workers needing to know who owns what property. This app offers something for everyone. If you need the best land ownership maps, aerial imagery, and property boundaries in your pocket, Onyx Hunt is the tool for the job. Try it free for 7 days. Download Onyx Hunt in the app or Google Play Store, or visit onyxmaps.com/hunt to get started. We would also like to thank
Scott for Aquarius Home Services. The new year's here. While you're promising to hit the gym, drink more water, and limit screen time, your home has its own resolutions, like tackling the broken water heater, leaky faucets, and sketchy wiring. Don't let your year start with repair chaos. Have Aquarius do the fix in 2026 and get $98 off any repair. Schedule today at AquariusHomeservices.com. Aquarius, earning the right to be recommended.
All right, let's get to Royce. Let's start with Roy on this one. What do you expect, or is it possible to expect anything at this point?
I don't think we know what to expect. I've been thinking about it for a long time, been saying that here, between the three of us for a while. I don't think we know what to expect, but I will say that I'm optimistic. I think there's a better, let's just say, I think there's a better chance that he becomes closer to the supernova that we saw for a period of time in his career than what we've seen recently when he just really struggles. And I think, having someone like Josh Bell has been around and they're going to work, together, I think that's incrementally positive. I don't know. I don't know anything about what Josh Bell thinks about hitting mechanics and, all that kind of stuff. But I think that Royce has two issues that he has to solve to take that great talent to the level that he has flashed at in brief moments in the past. One is hitting mechanics. I think he's got one little one little move in his getting ready to into the launch position and starting to approach the ball where his swing gets a little long, and he gets beat with some fastballs, and then he starts worrying about it and starts rushing, and everything kind of, I think then everything kind of it goes downhill from there, which leads to the next point, which is the mental aspect, and more importantly, the plan, right? So hitting is two things. Hitting is mechanics, and it's the plan when you go up there. Mauch used to say, it's not enough just to step in the box because it's your turn. You have to have a plan for what it is that you're, and that was the best way, the way that I ever heard it talked about, right? I mean, having a plan. You don't just get in there and say, okay, I'm going to get a fastball and hit it in the left field seats if you're a right-handed hitter. The plan is, what's this? How am I feeling? What do I need to do to be successful against this pitcher? How's he going to try to get me out? What's he going to throw for strikes, and what's he going to try to get me to chase? And I got to have a plan to address that. And it's the second piece, it's the plan part where really good young hitters take the next step, right? It's okay, I can really hit. I've got my mechanics figured out. But so do pitchers have a plan and catchers have a plan, and they can mess with your mechanics if you don't have the right plan. So I think the combination of those two things for Royce means everything. Get the swing shortened up to where he was when he was really good, be able to do that consistently, and then consistently step in the batter's box with a plan against the particular pitcher he got out there, and look for pitches, look for zones, whatever you have to do, hit the ball all over the ballpark and be successful against whatever the pitcher is going to try to do, and not dictate what to yourself. Well, I think that I want the pitcher to do this because this is what I want to hit, right? And so that's going to be the process for Royce.
Well, you know Royce well, and he's an easy guy to get to know. What do you expect?
I expect some sort of a bounce back. I just don't know how big of a bounce back this year. The guy's charisma is unquestioned. Does he go to too much of a length to say what we want to hear sometimes? I think he likes to talk, and I think he likes to sound sharp and smart and witty. And I think at times it's kind of gotten him in a little bit of hot water for some of his comments. But I think he's genuine. I think he's an honest guy. And I think he's a great person from a great family. And I just think, the last couple of years have had cold water splash on his face because it's probably the first time he's had to dealt with a stretch of failure. And he's trying to overcome that. So hopefully he's had a chance to hit the reset button this offseason. Last year he's gotten married. He settled down. Hopefully, he's, kind of synthesizing life the way it's coming at him, and he comes out on the other side better for it. But we can't give up on Royce Lewis. The talent is undeniable. We've seen what he can do at the plate, and he's a fantastic athlete in the field. So he definitely has the ability to be a solid defensive player. So I think there'll be a bounce back. I think, when you have a guy who was drafted as high as Royce, you automatically think he's going to be on a Hall of Fame track, and not every high draft pick ends up on that track. And as we've seen, a lot of them, go the wrong way. I don't think Royce is going to end up going the wrong way. I think there's too much talent and too much willingness to be good at his craft. So, I'm just a little concerned about how, he's going to respond to a couple of years in which he hasn't performed up to his expectations or other people's expectations. So I do think that he's got a chance to hit the reset button. I think, Shelty coming in will help. Maybe someone like Josh Bell will help. And he's got another veteran in Byron Buxton there. Buxton, people were writing Buxton off his first couple of years. Like, he's not going to hit more than 250 in the majors, and Buxton's proved them wrong. So there's people he can lean on for support advice and guidance as he bounces back. This is definitely a key year for Royce. He still has a lot of baseball ahead of him, and I think he's going to end up being a good player. Will he be a great player? Not sure. He still has a chance to be, but I think he's going to be. I think you're going to see a response this year after everything he's gone through.
Roy, my concern is that if you're struggling, how do you decide which voice to listen to? Because there are a lot of people who would like to help Royce right now. You can't be helped by 20 people. You got to pick like one, maybe two.
That's really, really true. And as I was listening to LaVelle talk, I mean, I agree with everything he says up to the point of, and I don't know how much stock you're putting in this, LaVelle, but I mean, at the end of the day, you got to do it yourself. I don't care who's your support, who's your guidance. I mean, maybe Josh Bell is good at that. Maybe he's not. Maybe Buck is good at that. Maybe he's not. Maybe they're not the right voices for Royce Lewis. I mean, I ultimately, I really believe that there's got to be somebody, and I would hope it would be the hitting coach, but there's got to be somebody that gets with Royce and makes sense to him in terms of A, mechanics, and B, the plan, and C, your mental strength, your mental emotional capabilities that when you go through tough times. And it's not a lot of guys. You can't talk to a lot of guys. That doesn't help. And ultimately, you got to do it yourself. You got to figure out who you are and what you need to do. And I do believe that if you can get one guy, and as I said, I'd really love it to be the hitting coach, because that makes the most sense. Because the hitting coach is thinking about you as a player all the time. Buck is going to be thinking about Buck, and Josh Bell's going to be thinking about Josh Bell during the course of the season. And they can have, they're not going to sit down with Royce and say, and let's go through your bats last night, or that's just not the way it works. They're happy to help, but they're not the hitting coach, and they're not Royce Lewis's gurus, and so the support will be great, but Royce needs to figure it out. And when you're a young player, you need somebody, and hopefully it's a hitting coach that can really help you figure out. When I think about the really good hitting coaches that got credit for being great hitting coaches when I was playing, Charlie Lau, one of the most famous because of how he had the Royals swinging the bat, and George Brett, became a Hall of Fame player under the tutelage of Charlie Lau in his very formative years. Right, George was going to be a Hall of Fame player probably anyway. Charlie didn't go out there and hit for George, but to have Charlie, and I guess my point is they had a mechanics idea. Charlie had this whole thing about letting go of the top hand right after contact and all that kind of stuff. But what Charlie did for those guys was give them a really positive attitude about, if you do this, some really good things are going to happen. And when they started happening, they were all in on it, right? And it was that mental positive dynamic that that made it. I think about Walt Hriniak, who in Boston, who was a devotee of Charlie Lau. He made. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Lau because I'm a White Sox fan. Walt Hriniak was their hitting coach for a while.
Well, Walt Hriniak was in Boston and turned when he started out, and he turned Dwight Evans around big time, and he helped Burleson. He helped a lot of guys there, and I really believe, especially with Dwight Evans, it was less about mechanics, although he changed the mechanics a little bit. It was more about the same way what I was talking about Charlie. So the really good hitting coaches are the ones that are so much in your corner and have the ability to project, this is going to be positive for you, and stay with this. And when it starts becoming positive, they're able to tell the player, this is why it's being positive. This is what you should continue to do in order. And then it becomes little subtle adjustments. And I hope that the hitting coach for the Twins is able to do those kinds of things for Royce, because I think that's what he desperately needs.
Jim, when you brought up the voices listening to, I started having flashbacks to Byron Buxton. Didn't Buck go through the same issue too? When
he did, he was like everyone wanted to help him, and you can't.
Yep.
I mean, if you listen to more than two, maybe you can handle two voices. One voice is the best, but you start getting 3, 4, 5, 8, 20. You're going to have contradictory information that's just confuse the hell out of you.
Yep.
Yeah, I had Mauch in Minnesota when and Mauch was pretty good, I wouldn't put him in a hitting coach category like Charlie Lau or Don Baylor or Chili Davis or somebody that's been pretty good like that. But he worked with guys, and he worked with me early on, and he had ways to get me going in extra hitting that got me in my hands and my lower body in good positions to hit. And that was really he was kind of the guy for me. And then by the time I got to the Yankees, for example, I was pretty well established, but I was going through some things, and Lou Piniella kind of befriended me, and Piniella, he loved hitting. It was a great hitter. And he loved talking about it. And he kind of took me under his wing in terms of a couple of things that he suggested. And I had some really good success. I hit 20 home runs and 18 home runs, for the Yankees in 2 consecutive years, playing shortstop. And I credit a lot of that to Lou, because he was kind of my guy I could go to and talk to and say, this is the way I'm feeling. And Lou used to say, look, I've tried everything. I've done everything wrong. I've done some things right. I know everything about about what guys do, right? And he had pretty good reasoning for that. But it has to be one guy. If you really need it, if you're the kind of guy that needs something like that, it can only be one guy.
Yep.
It's funny you brought up Gene Mauch, because he is one of the more interesting minds in the history of baseball. When I first started covering ball, it was in 1995 with the Kansas City Royals, and Bob Boone had Gene Mauch as his bench coach.
Oh yeah, he was his bench coach that year. Yep.
Yeah, and I tell you what, man, it was my first year. I was still learning about inner ball, because I definitely didn't know as much as I thought I did. And having conversations with Gene was tough, man, because he was thinking 3 steps ahead of you all the time. And I had to learn how to keep up with that guy. He had a way of looking at a box score and kind of reconstructing events. Looking at a box
he could reconstruct. He could look at a box score, and he could tell you from the first pitch to the last pitch what happened in the game. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen, because he used to go through it with me. And I don't have ways to describe that baseball brain. I just don't. It was, I played for La Russa for a little while. I played for Billy Martin twice. I played for Tom Kelly, who was excellent, really smart. And I think a little bit ahead of, most everybody else when he was managing World Series teams. But I have no way of describing Gene's baseball genius. I've tried. I give examples sometimes, but I fail miserably. I can't even say what I've learned from Gene. I learned more from Gene than I ever any manager made sense to me. And I don't know how to describe that. It was incredible.
I just learned to shut up and listen. Stop having conversations.
Yeah, that's really true. And I can't tell you how many guys have said that, LaVelle, and I get it, because that's what I did. I would just shut up and listen. I would ask a question, and then there would be a 15 or 20 minute baseball treatise on my question and all the ramifications of my question and all the ramifications of the answer that he gave me and how it applied to this and that and some other situation. And it's like, okay, I'm glad I asked.
I had that experience when I started, because my first baseball coverage as a beat writer experience was covering the Twins in the mid-90s. And, Tom Kelly was known for being very difficult to deal with, very hard on media, very close to the vest in terms of making answers. And he also got offended if you weren't thinking along with him. He was like, why'd you ask that question? Why, you should. And sometimes I had explained to him, well, we have to be able to quote you so we can get that information to the readers. We can't just assume we know what you're thinking. Anyway, for all of that reputation he had, if you wanted to talk baseball, if you really want to talk baseball, if you really wanted to listen, at least for me, I think for LaVelle too, you could sit in his office and talk baseball. If it wasn't the hot button, like TV type question, if it wasn't the gotcha stuff, it was just, if you just really wanted to talk about the game and learn about the game, he was very generous with his time in that regard.
Yeah.
I'm going to can I give you guys two personal examples?
Yeah.
Sure.
One is when I first got to the Twins. I got traded up from the Rangers and I to play shortstop for the Twins. And we had a pitcher on the club named Jim Hughes. And I had known Jim Hughes. He was actually from my neck of the woods in LA, and we played together as kids. He was a little bit ahead of me, but anyway, I was going to go out there and play behind Jim Hughes for the first time after I first gotten traded up there. And Gene sat me down and he said, "Okay, I know you know this. Jim Hughes is a sinker ball pitcher, and I know that that with right-handed hitters, right-handed sinker ball, the ball's going to be running down and in. They want to get the big end of the bat out. They don't want to get a hit on the hands with that good sinker that he's got. So you're going to want to play them more in the hole." And I go, "Yeah, that's what I was thinking." He goes, "Okay, but no." I said no. He said, he's also got a great changeup. And now this is before, any of the analytics, before any of the where's the ball hit, on different pitches. This is just in Gene's observations, which he was also a genius at seeing things. I mean, Yogi's great comment to me. You can see a lot by looking.
Mm-hmm.
That was Gene. I mean, the things that occurred to him just by his observation. But he said, Hugo's got a great changeup. And guys know that. And so they wait just a little bit longer, make sure it's not that changeup. So they're not out in front. Most of the time, right-handers will hit that ground ball in a hole, and you want to be over there. But against Jim Hughes, play him more straight up because they'll hit balls up the middle because they're going to be a little bit late because they're waiting on that changeup. They're concerned about that changeup. I mean, I never heard anything like that from anybody else. And it was his observation. And how can I help my players understand what we need to do and what kinds of things to be looking at? The second thing I just wanted to mention, because I talked about this on Twitter a little bit a few months ago, and people were talking about Gene Mauch, and they were talking about his playing small ball and bunting, and in 1977 and 78, I hit in front of Rod Carew. And in 78, I led the team in home runs with 19 and sacrifice bunts with like 23. It doesn't happen very often that a guy will lead his team in home runs and sacrifice bunts. But here's what happened. Obviously, Mauch liked getting guys on second base with just one out. He liked bunting guys over, especially early, because he believed, and I think rightly so, that pitchers pitch differently, meaning not as well, with guys in scoring position as they do with, if guys are nobody's on or just on first base. So he wanted to put the pressure on the pitcher, and he also knew the odds were if the team that scored first, usually won the game. Odds. Okay, so he would have me bunt all the time. Lyman Bostock would get on first base a lot. I'd bunt him over. Crew's hitting. All Crew needed was a base hit to get one run, and we all know how good Rodney was at getting base hits. So we used to do that a lot. And then he said to me one time, and we kind of established that. And people always scratch their heads. Why does Smalley have to bunt all the time? Why does he have to bunt all the time? And I was just getting established as a hitter, right? So it was so ingrained that I was going to bunt him over that it was easy for me to bunt because they gave me a first pitch fastball all the time. Here it comes, first pitch fastball. It's easy to bunt. I bunt him over. Gene came to me one time and said, "Okay, I think we've done that enough." He said, "Make sure you look at the sign because I'm not going to have you bunt all the time. You're going to get first pitch fastballs and just cheat on them. Just see what you can do with it." And sure enough, I hit a lot of home runs on first pitch fastballs after somebody had just gotten on first base with nobody out, or first and second and nobody out. And it was almost like Gene giving me a 3-0 hit sign. He goes, I know they're going to throw you a fastball. We've established that. Have fun. And I mean, there's stuff that he thought about that I have never heard from or seen from anybody else.
Man.
3-dimensional chess versus us playing checkers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good discussion. Thank you, guys. I'm going to give you a quick booze and blues. If you guys want to add anything today, great. If not, we'll save stuff for next week and the following weeks as we continue through the off season. I think it's on one of those channels that has a lot of music stuff. I can't remember what, but if you look for Gary Clark Jr. live at Antone's, the famous blues joint in Austin, Texas, that kind of the epicenter of what would become the great Austin music scene. It's where Stevie Ray Vaughan grew up. It's where Stevie Ray Vaughan first got to play with Albert King. Just so many great. It's a Jimmy Vaughan. So many great guitarists went through there. Gary Clark Jr. used to hang around the club as a kid. He would finally get up on stage and play with some of his heroes, and everybody realized how great it was to be. It was kind of his launching pad, too. So there's a really cool, again, Gary Clark Jr. And by the way, I know people in the music industry, they say he's a wonderful human being as well. Great guitarist, great songwriter, great modern, hard blues player. Check that show out. You'll see some great guitar work.
I saw Gary Clark Jr. at the Fine Line, not at the Fine Line, at First Avenue about 7-8 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He was fantastic.
Wow, he's so good.
When your daughter was working there, Jim?
Yeah, she worked there back then. Yes, I used to go to a lot of shows at First Avenue because of that.
And I would just also give a shout out to what you mentioned there about Stevie Ray Vaughan and Albert King. That album that they did together, you just put that album on and sit down and just cruise through those blues players for about an hour. Unbelievable.
Great stuff. Good show, guys. I appreciate it. We will talk to you next week. Thanks to all of our listeners and all of our sponsors. Looking forward to a very interesting 2026.